Popularity corresponds with a $2.2 billion TV rights deal the WNBA signed for 2026 that covers the next 11 years, which ESPN reports will increase the league's annual revenue by about $200 million a season. Yet, WNBA players say they're not being paid what they're owed. Right now, they get less than 10% of the league's total revenue, a strikingly slim margin when compared to other pro sports leagues in which athletes typically split revenues about 50-50.
The WNBA is parading its newfound fame, celebrating record ratings and a colossal $2.2 billion TV deal. They want us to believe they're finally a powerhouse, a league exploding with organic growth and undeniable star power. But beneath the dazzling headlines and celebratory press releases, a darker, more complex truth lurks. This isn't a story of triumph. It's a meticulously crafted illusion, built on forced deals, financial smoke and mirrors, and a desperate dependency that their recent biggest injury shockingly brought to light. This isn't the WNBA's moment of glory, it's their moment of utter exposure.
In the past 6 months, all we have been hearing about is how the WNBA is having a record-breaking event after another, and yet not paying its players a fair salary. The simple answer is the league is just not making enough money. And it's basically just been trying to stay afloat all these years. Well, until the $2.2 billion media rights deal it signed with Disney, Amazon Prime, and NBC just a couple of months ago. And of course, the announcement of the 3 new teams that will be added to the league in the next few years. That will all flush the WNBA with much needed cash. This, of course, coincides with the collective bargaining agreement that will be negotiated after the 2025 season. CNBC dug into the nuances of the league's business model to really see how likely it is that the salaries will match up to the influx of the cash in the next few years.
The league loves to brag about that shiny $2.2 billion TV rights deal set to kick in back in 2026. They want every single one of us to believe that ESPN, CBS, ABC, and whoever else just couldn't resist throwing billions of dollars at what they claim is the hottest league in America. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The WNBA didn't actually earn that deal. Nope, it was the NBA, specifically Adam Silver, who strong-armed the networks into it. He knew darn well nobody was paying real money for pretend basketball, so he basically made the WNBA a package deal. You want NBA games? Fine. But guess what? You're also taking WNBA games, whether you like it or not. That, my friends, is not market success. It's a forced bundle, like being told you can't get Wi-Fi unless you also pay for a landline you'll literally never use. The league might pretend this is proof of incredible growth, but what it really shows is a deep, fundamental dependency. And let me tell you, if the NBA ever decided to pull the plug, the WNBA would vanish faster than a politician's promise after Election Day. That $200 million per season figure they keep throwing around, that's not revenue generated by actual demand. It's a pure, unadulterated handout. But that handout is just the beginning of the story.
$1 billion media rights deal out there.
There's rumor of it?
Reporting about the next media rights deal.
Then if I'm not great with numbers, low ball.
Why do you say that?
That's a low ball. You're saying how much?
$2.2 billion over 11
Not
years.
enough. Not even close. Now, I'm not trying to inflate it a whole lot, but a 2's nice. An 8 would be better. That's what I'm talking about, because they know. They know. And we certainly have come along.
Yet WNBA players, they treat it like it's their golden ticket. Suddenly, they think their salaries should double, maybe even triple, or somehow magically match NBA paychecks. And here's where the comedy truly kicks in. WNBA players currently receive less than 10% of league revenue, especially compared to the roughly 50-50 split in the NBA. Now, that sounds unfair if you just stop right there, doesn't it? But the absolutely crucial detail, the one they conveniently gloss over, is that the WNBA doesn't actually generate a profit at all. Not ever. They operate at a loss every single year, and it's the NBA that covers the staggering difference. Yet these players want to split money that simply doesn't exist. They want 50% of negative numbers. Good luck trying to cash that check, seriously. And of course, because nothing screams urgent national issue like making sure a bench player in the WNBA gets a bigger slice of an imaginary pie, politicians quickly jumped right into the fray. The Democratic Women's Caucus even sent letters to the league, literally demanding a fair CBA, as if WNBA players are somehow coal miners being criminally underpaid for risking their lives underground. Nope. They're athletes in a league that genuinely wouldn't survive a single month without NBA welfare. But Congress, incredibly, treats them like victims of oppression. It's absolutely wild. Yet the biggest smoke and mirrors act is still to come.
WNBA players want as much money as the NBA players. So the NBA actually generates extreme amounts of revenue. Somebody wrote a joke about it. The WNBA wanted what their just pay was, and so they owe $400 million because that's really how it balances out. It's like a losing. It's never been profitable.
Now let's finally talk ratings, because this is where things get genuinely interesting. After Caitlin Clark went down, the league suddenly had this golden opportunity to actually prove what they've been claiming for months. We're bigger than one player, they kept repeating. She wasn't carrying the league. There were plenty of stars, and people would tune in no matter what. So what actually happened? According to the numbers they've bothered to share, the WNBA averaged 969,000 viewers across ABC, ESPN, CBS, and ION. They celebrated this like they had just broken the entire sports worldwide open, shouting, "It's the most watched season since 1998. And sure, that sounds impressive, until you actually look at the context. Because when Caitlin Clark plays, numbers spike. When she doesn't, they absolutely plummet. For example, her Indiana team pulled in a massive 1.3 million viewers on ION for just one game. The other 7 Indiana games without her averaged only 924,000. That's a noticeable drop, right? And the rest of the league without her involvement? Just 505,000. That's barely half. On CBS, the Indiana team with Clark averaged a whopping 1.8 million viewers. The rest of the WNBA? A meager 83,000. On ABC, Clark's games consistently pulled 2 million, while the rest barely scraped over 1 million. And on ESPN, Clark averaged 1.4 million, with the rest hitting only 600,000. Do you see the pattern here? The growth isn't the league, it's one player. But here's the truly shady part. Not all ratings were even reported. Specifically, 4 games on ESPN and ABC, both owned by Disney, suddenly had no numbers available. They just vanished. Why? Did ESPN misplace them in the mail? Did some intern accidentally delete the file? Or maybe, just maybe, those games bombed so spectacularly that reporting the truth would completely expose the WNBA's entire hype machine. This wouldn't even be the first time ESPN conveniently forgot ratings. Remember when Pat McAfee's show absolutely tanked? ESPN magically stopped releasing his numbers after a while. Same exact playbook here. So while the WNBA struts around shouting about record growth, the actual truth is hidden in plain sight. The games that do well almost always involve Caitlin Clark. The games that don't are buried, ignored, or quietly just not reported. And yet the league insists that this somehow proves their star power is balanced across all teams. Balanced? Please. That's like saying the Beatles were just another band. And the attendance figures tell an equally unsettling tale.
And it's basically just been trying to stay afloat all these years.
And let's not even forget attendance. The WNBA loves to point out that 7 teams averaged over 10,000 fans a game this season. Wow! Right, except take a much closer look. The Minnesota Lynx, supposedly one of the league's strongest franchises, averaged just under 10,000 in an arena that seats twice that. So even their best markets are filling seats at only half capacity. If this were any other business, it would be called underperformance, plain and simple. But in WNBA land, mediocrity consistently gets spun as victory. This is exactly why Caitlin Clark's injury was such an absolute nightmare for the league. She's not just a player, she's the league's literal life support. Without her, ratings sag, attendance falls, and the entire illusion of success cracks wide open. But instead of admitting that glaring truth, the WNBA cooked up their latest PR campaign. See, ratings are still up without her. Except when you strip away all the spin, what they're calling up is basically flatlined interest compared to the massive surge she alone created. And what about the players themselves? They're acting like this supposed growth means it's payday, demanding bigger contracts, private charter flights, and revenue splits that quite literally don't even exist. Meanwhile, the actual product hasn't improved one bit. The basketball is sloppy, the pace is slow, and half the league's headlines come from off-court drama, not actual competition. People aren't tuning in for the fundamentals. They're tuning in for Caitlin Clark, for the controversy, and for the circus atmosphere the WNBA itself actively encourages. But the WNBA's biggest fear isn't just today's numbers, it's what happens tomorrow. The WNBA's recent claims of explosive growth and record-breaking TV deals are a carefully constructed illusion. The $2.2 billion media rights agreement wasn't earned through market demand, but was essentially a forced bundle orchestrated by the NBA, highlighting the WNBA's deep financial dependency. Players are demanding increased salaries and revenue splits, despite the league consistently operating at a loss, with the NBA covering the substantial deficit. This creates a situation where players are asking for a share of money that simply doesn't exist, a point often overlooked amidst the political rhetoric. The league's growth is heavily skewed by individual stars like Caitlin Clark. Her presence dramatically inflates viewership, while games without her see significant drops, exposing the WNBA's bigger-than-one-player narrative as false. The convenient disappearance of certain game ratings from Disney-owned networks further suggests a deliberate attempt to hide less favorable numbers, mirroring past media tactics to conceal underperformance. Even attendance figures are misleading, with sellouts often occurring in half-capacity arenas, spun as success rather than underperformance. Ultimately, Caitlin Clark's injury served as a stark test, revealing the league's fragile foundation. Without her, ratings decline, and the illusion of widespread interest fades. The WNBA's alleged progress isn't organic. It's artificial, relying heavily on one player's popularity and sustained subsidies from the NBA. This manufactured growth, coupled with a lack of transparency and an overhyped narrative, raises critical questions about the league's long-term sustainability and true financial viability once its current external supports inevitably shift or diminish.